Hello everyone, I hope you guys are doing well. To all the NABARD Grade A aspirants out there, today in this video we are going to be discussing the PYQs, which is the previous year questions from 2025. From what topic? From the subject of decision making. So basically, in your phase 1 paper, decision making is a component, right? And from decision making, how many questions do we get? We get 10 questions, right? So in this video we'll be discussing the previous year questions which came in 2025 specifically, and try to answer the same and understand the reasoning behind it, right? So decision making is generally on the easier side and it's only 10 questions, right? So it is not that difficult of a subject or a component basically. So before we move forward and get into the PYQs, for all those who are looking for any sort of guidance, EduTap offers the courses, right? And currently there is a 2-day demo gold course going on, which is going to act as a trial period. So for 2 days you get a trial of the actual NABARD Grade A gold course, right? So if you wish to, you can check out the same. Now moving forward, let us have a look at our first question. Again, all the questions are from 2025 only. We'll be talking about the 10 questions, right? So the first question is, the economic man model in classical and neoclassical economics assumes that individuals act as perfectly rational agents who pursue self-interest. So the question is talking about the economic man model of decision making, right? So when we talk about models of decision making, we have two different models, economic and administrative man, of which this question is specifically talking about one of the models. So based on the definition which has been given, which set of characteristics accurately describes the economic man? So you have to figure out the correct characteristic of the economic man model. So when we talk about the economic man model, just by reading this definition, there is the answer straight up for me. Even if you do not know the exact characteristic, just reading this definition you will get your answer, which is what? If you have a look here, what is it saying? Individuals act as perfectly rational agents who pursue self-interest. So what is the one characteristic I can see of the individuals here? That they are perfectly rational. So this is one of the characteristics of the economic man model, that I as a person am perfectly rational. I am making decisions with rationality, not out of feelings or emotions, right? So if we have a look at the options, is it saying that the emotional bounded rational is something of this sort of mentioned in the definition? No. Altruistic. Now basically, what is altruistic? That is a sort of a feeling wherein you are not pursuing your self-interest, you are working for the needs of others. So that is completely contradictory, because here it has said that you are pursuing your self-interest. So this is incorrect. Then comes perfectly rational. Can I say this is my answer? Yes. Why? Because straight up in the definition itself it has been mentioned, perfectly rational agents. That means you're a rational person. And finally, driven by social norms. Again, it is incorrect, and neither is anywhere in the definition is it mentioned is the economic man risk averse. So therefore, if you just straight up go on the basis of the question itself, you will get your answer, which is perfectly rational. So answer is option C. But if you want to actually know the set of characteristics of the economic man, right, not just following the trial and error method we just did, but rather understanding the question and answering, let us see what the characteristics of the economic man are. So when we talk about a decision making model, we have the economic man model, and it is based on the principle of maximization, meaning I want to maximize my returns, I want the highest returns possible which I can get, right? Meaning what? Let's say I want to buy a car, right? As per this economic man model, I will go and buy the best possible car in the entire world, right? The car which will help me maximize my returns, right? So I will have a look at all the options I have available. Let's say I have Maruti, Kia, Toyota, Mercedes, I'll see all these options. From all these options, the economic man model says I will choose the option which will give me the maximum returns. Whatever car that is, the maximum returns, I will go for that car. So basically, the person will search for all possible alternatives and select the best alternative possible, right? Now, what is the characteristic of the economic man model? It is that I must have a lot of data and information to make this best option choice. That is, how will I know of all the 5 options of cars I have available, which is the best? Out of the 5, how will I know which is the best? Only if I have all the data and information regarding each car, right? I have these 5 options. Let's say the first option gives me a mileage of 10, the second option gives me a mileage of 15, third gives me a mileage of 20, fourth gives me a mileage of 22, and fifth maybe gives a mileage of 18. So, only and only if I have all this data along with me and the other parameters as well, safety and other things. Only if I have all this information can I make the best choice amongst all the 5 options of cars I have to buy, right? So, it is very, very essential that you have information, right? Only then you can make the best decision to maximize your returns. That is the first scenario. The second characteristic is that, obviously my objective is to maximize my return. So let's say I want to buy the car which has the highest mileage. So I want to maximize my return. Which option will I choose? I will go with the fourth car because that is giving me the highest mileage, right? So my objective is just to get the maximum returns out of whatever I'm going to select, right? And very essential is that economic man model talks about perfect rationality. You must be rational. I am making the decisions based on this information I have collected. Let's say I, as a person, my personal favorite is Toyota. So who is not a rational person? Who, even after having this information, let's say as per the information, the maximum returns is coming from Mercedes. Assuming maximum returns comes from Mercedes, but I am a person who has some sort of, emotions or nostalgia towards a specific car brand, which is Toyota. So even though I know the most maximum return is coming from Mercedes, I still go and buy Toyota. Then I am not a rational person because I made the decision on my emotions, on my feelings I have towards the brand. When will I be perfectly rational? When I am making the decision solely based on the information which I have collected, and for this information must also be perfect. That is, you must have true, correct, good information. If the information is false, then does not make sense, right? So this is what the economic man model says, that you are going to choose the alternative with the maximum returns, right, which is the best possible scenario of all. And for this, how can you choose this maximum return objective? Only when you have perfect information and when you are perfectly rational. So this is what the economic man model says, and therefore in our answer the characteristic was perfect rationality. This is what is essential for you, right? Now let us have a look at the next question. The second question is, job description and job specification are associated with which of the managerial functions? So you have to figure out job description and job specification, which is JD and JS. This is associated with managerial function. So when we talk about managerial functions, we have 5 functions of management. What are these 5 functions? Planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling. These are your 5 functions as given in the options as well. So out of these 5 functions, which function is associated with JD and JS? Job description and job specification. Very simple question. For this, all you need to know what is a job description and a job specification. Whenever companies are hiring, don't they give out some list of requirements that this must be the qualification, this is the job role, this must be the experience? They give out all those requirements based on which you see if you are eligible and then fill out the hiring application. Yes, that is basically what your JD and JS is, where the description of the job you have to perform is mentioned and all the specifications required for it is mentioned. So what is going to happen? This would only be given out when the organization is hiring for a role. If I am not hiring, what is the point of giving out the JD? right? So at which function of management are we hiring employees? Are we looking for employees? For this, we have to understand your 5 functions of management. What are these 5 functions? Firstly, we have planning. Planning is the stage where I set the initial plan. Let's say I want to open a cafe. Where will I open it? The location? What sort of menu will there be? How much funds do I have? Planning consists of this part, the initial stage wherein I'm just setting up a plan. I'm thinking what I want to do, how I want to do it exactly. I'm setting up the groundwork, the step by step scenario. So can I say JD and JS is required in planning? No, obviously not. I am not hiring people at the planning stage yet. I am just planning what I want to do, how I want to begin my business. Then comes organizing. What is organizing? In this organizing stage, what do? We are simply going to be figuring out the roles and responsibilities, that what sort of work would be done in the business, right? If I'm opening a cafe, I need somebody as a chef, I might need somebody as a waiter, I might need a manager or an accountant. So I'm just figuring out who will do what sort of task and who will be the manager or not, right? So in this step also, am I hiring? No. Before hiring, I need to know what sort of job is to be done in my organization, right? So in organizing also, JD and GS is not required. Then comes staffing. Staffing is the point where I'm now looking for people, where I want to employ somebody. So can I say that at this stage of staffing is when I am, you know, going to hire people? And if I want to hire people, I will have to tell people first what sort of work they are going to do, which is falling under your description of the job, right? So therefore, can I say my answer is nothing but option C, staffing? Yes. Now, if you are not sure of the answer, you are going for trial and error, right? So we have already established planning and organizing is out of it. So what about directing and controlling? Directing is the stage where I am giving you directions, orders, supervising you, telling you how to get the work done, right? So at this stage, when I'm telling you how to get the work done, this basically means what? That you're already hired. So if you're already hired, there is again no requirement of the JD and JS. JD, JS is only used while hiring, right? So again, that is why directing is out. And what about controlling? Controlling again means what? That I am going to control the activities, I'm going to supervise, I'm going to see if I could meet my profit targets or not. So in this case also, everything is running in the organization. Am I hiring people? No. So therefore, controlling is also out, right? And our answer is nothing but option C, staffing. To understand more about the 5 functions of management, we basically have seen planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling. What was planning? We understood wherein I'm just setting the initial plan. I want to open a cafe. Planning, what all will I see? Where I'll open it, right? What I'll serve, how is the decor supposed to look, what sort of customer base am I going to be catering to. So planning is for answering all these various different questions. I'm setting the initial plan about what my company is supposed to be for, right? Then comes organizing. In organizing, what am I doing? I am going to see, uh, you know, who is supposed to do what sort of work, right? The responsibilities, the job responsibilities. That is, a waiter is going to serve, a chef is going to cook, those things. And what else will I do? I will talk about reporting relations. What are reporting relations? That is, the accountant is supposed to report to the manager, right? The other people also, there would be some boss, right? Some boss up to whom the employee is supposed to report to. So in organizing, I will establish these reporting relations. Then comes staffing. This is the point where I'm hiring people. This is the point where I'm hiring people, right? And under staffing itself, we do this: send out the job description and job specification. What contains your job description? In the job description, I'll mention the title of the position, right, and the location at which the position is open. That is, let's say I have a job open for a accountant in the location of Delhi. So this would be mentioned in the job description. The name of the organization would be mentioned, your duties, and who would you report to. That is, what sort of work as an accountant are you supposed to do, who will you report to, how will be the workplace environment, any sort of machine or let's say software if you should have a prior knowledge of. These things would be written in the job description. What about job specification? Job specification will specify, will tell you that as a candidate, what is the organization looking for in you. Job description is about what the job is about, what the job is offering, how is it going to be done. But job specification is when the organization is telling you that to be eligible, you as a candidate must have these much requirements, which is what your education, maybe you're supposed to be a graduate, any sort of work experience if required, any specific skill which you must have for that job, right? Any responsibilities or trainings which you have done or taken, any sort of other volunteer work, anything, and your personal and emotional characteristics. Basically, this is what makes up your JD and JS. And when are we giving this out? When I'm going to hire people. So, staffing is the stage where hiring goes on and JD and JS is given out for that purpose. Because looking at this JD and JS only, I'll get to know if I'm interested in the role which is open and if I'm eligible to fill the application or not. Right? Then comes what? Next stage of next function is directing. Directing is where what we are doing. I am now going to start the organization. So I have to direct you about the work. You're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do this, right? Give you orders, motivate you, communicate you exactly what all needs to be done. There would be some sort of leadership going on, right? I'll have to supervise you if you're doing the work correctly or not. So all of this falls under directing. So what did we see? What happens in directing? We are talking about communication, that I have to communicate what all needs to be done. I'll have to motivate you so that you keep on doing the work properly. There must be good leadership, a leader who will guide you what all to be done. And um there is going to be supervision. So these are what is to be happening in directing. And finally, what we have, our last function of management is controlling. Controlling is when I'm seeing if I was able to meet my target or not, and if not, why. Meaning, let's say when I opened my cafe, I had a target to make a profit of 10,000, right? But in reality, I see I only made a profit of 5,000. So this means I could not meet this target, right? Controlling will do what? In controlling, I will check why I could not meet this target. Maybe the raw materials price was higher, or let's say I was selling my food at a cheap price, that is why I could not meet my target. So I'll figure out what is the reason. Once I get to know what exactly was the reason I could not meet the target, what will I do? I will take some corrective action to fix this and ensure I meet my target. So this is basically what the 5 functions of management are. Now, if we specifically talk about this 5 functions of management, this falls under a fringe topic of general management, right? Basically, it's not, when we talk about decision making, what you have to understand is that decision making is a small part which goes on in planning. That is, when I'm making a plan, I have to make certain decisions. That is what the decision making component is about. However, certain fringe topics are also tested in this component, and the fringe topic, as we have just seen, it's related to these functions of management, the general management part. Basically, it's somewhat related, right? If you have this basic understanding what I just explained, it would be more than enough for you. Because again, as we know, it's only 10 questions, and from the fringe topics, hardly 1 to 2 questions come. So if you only to focus on the decision making component also, that works, right? Now if we have a look at our next question, which of the following statement best describes a standing plan in management? So here in the question is related to a standing plan. What exactly is a standing plan? You have to understand that standing plan is related to plans which can be used for repeat purpose. So they can be used repeatedly, such as what? Let's say the fire plan. That is, if fire breaks out, the fire alarm will ring and you are supposed to run out of the building. That is a plan which can be used repeatedly. Nothing to change there. Or let's say your sick leave policy. The entire company will have one sick leave policy for all the employees, right? So those are standing plans which can be used repeatedly. Now let us have a look at the options. A plan prepared for a specific one-time situation. Is this true? No, because we saw it's for repeat use. A long-term plan designed only for top management. A long-term plan designed only for top management. Can I say this is true? Again, not, because this sick leave, as is that example of standing plan, it is for everybody, not just the top management, right? A plan formulated to deal with recurring and routine situations. Can I say this makes sense? Recurring means what? Repeated situations, right? It keeps on happening again and again and again. And routine situations also, it falls under the same thing, that your sick leave policy, it's sort of a routine scenario. Somebody gets sick, they will take a sick leave, right? So can I say option C is my answer? Yes, I can. What about D? A plan that outlines the organization's vision and mission. Is this statement true? No, because it's for repeat use only. Nothing about vision and mission is to be mentioned. And a plan prepared only during emergencies. Again, it is incorrect, because we have understood the crux of standing plan is that it is for repeated use. So therefore, our answer is nothing but option C. That is a plan to deal with recurring and routine situations, which is nothing but a plan which you can use repeatedly. Right? So basically, what is a standing plan? These plans are for repeat use, recurring use. What you have to understand is that they are formed for a long period. That is, we all know that in schools there is a plan to, wear uniforms, give out uniforms. And are these uniforms separate for people? No. Generally, in the same class, everybody has the same uniform. Girls have one uniform with the skirt, boys have another uniform with the trousers. But that is same for everybody in the class, right? So, can I say that this plan is for repeat use? That is, you go to the vendor who sells the uniform, he will sell you only this exact uniform which you are supposed to wear, right? Would he keep on changing the uniforms or anything? No, obviously not. The plan is in place that all the students of the school are supposed to receive this one kind of uniform only. Girls one type, boys one type. So that is what you are going to get. So therefore, these are the plans which are for repeated, recurring or routine tasks, and they are formed for a long period. Because of that, they have a wide scope because it's for the entire organization. Nothing about CEO, nothing about employees. It's for everybody in the organization. And yes, it is repetitive. And when we talk about standing plans, we have certain types of standing plans, such as policies, as we saw your sick leave policy, procedures, and methods, basically. So that is all about standing plan. Now, if we have a look at our next question, in the creative process of decision making, which of the following represents the final stage? So when we talk about decision making, there is a process of decision making. Which of the following will be the final stage, the end stage? What will be the answer? If we have a look at the options, preparation is basically when I'm preparing to make the decision, right? Can I say this is the final stage? That is the first stage, in fact. So this is incorrect. Then we have incubation. What is incubation? Incubation is basically you're trying to think of the idea, and it's in your mind. You have the idea, right? So now you're trying to think about it even more, brainstorm a bit, and come up with the best solution or the alternative, basically. So can I say it's incubation? No. Illumination, can I say it will be illumination? That does not make sense, right? In the process of decision making, can I say illumination is a step or a process? No. So it's arbitrary. Followed by verification. Can I say verification might be the final stage? What is verification? I'm verifying now that the plan was there. I made the decision. Now I'm verifying if my decision was good or bad. So can I say it's sort of the final stage? Yes, I can. Why not implementation? Because implementation will always be a step prior when I'm just implementing my decision. Final stage can never be implementation, right? Because after implementation, you have to verify or you have to check. You have to see the final review that if your decision worked or not, right? So can we say our answer is option D, verification? Yes, we can, right? Now, if we have a look at our next question, in the process of decision making, criteria and constraints are mainly used for which of the following purposes? So again, it's talking about the process of decision making. Where are we using criteria and constraints? Criteria means what? Criteria is basically when I have some sort of, type given. Let's say I'm applying for a job, and in the job it has said that you must be a graduate, right? So this is the criteria that if you are not a graduate, you cannot fill that job. So therefore, criteria is some sort of requirement which you have to meet anyhow. And then we have constraints. What are constraints? These are limitations. That is, there are two options with me. I have to make a decision from here. I have funds of 10k available to start my business. Out of these two decisions, I can make one. For plan A, I require funds of 8k. For plan B, I require funds of 12k. I can only choose one out of A and B. But how much funds do I have? 10k only. So which will I choose? I will choose option A. Why? Because I have a limitation. I cannot choose option B because I only have 10,000 as my fund. I cannot pay this 12,000. So there is a limitation, a constraint in the amount of funds I have because I do not have unlimited resources. That is what a constraint is. So in which stage of decision making, in the process of decision making, under which stage are criteria and constraints used? For what purpose basically? So let's see the options. Identifying the problem. To identify the problem, do I require criteria and constraint? No. The problem could be anything. I can just identify it, right? So there is no requirement of seeing if I have resources or not for it. So incorrect. Second is generating alternative courses of action. To figure out certain alternative course of action, do I have to see criteria or constraint? I can figure out end results, right? I can figure out A, B, C, D as my plans, and it's all about just brainstorming what can be the options out there. Will that include any sort of criteria or constraint in place? No, ideally it won't. Then we have evaluating and selecting the best alternative. Can I say this is the stage where criteria and constraint is used? Because what happens? I have plan A, B, C, D. Out of these 4 plans, this is the stage where I generated my alternative courses of actions that I have 4 options. Out of this 4, I have to evaluate which is my best option and select one option. Now, when I'm talking about evaluation and selection, don't you think this is the moment where criteria and constraint will come in? That is, when I'm selecting the best course of action, I have to see if I have enough resources, right? So let's say I don't have enough resources for C and D. So I have to choose from A and B. And from A and B also, what will happen? Certain criteria must be met, right? Let's say for job A, I need to have masters, right? For job A, I need to have masters. For job B, you have to be just 12th pass, right? So I have to see which criteria I meet, right? If I don't have a master's, can I apply for job A? No, I have to select job B only. So this is the point when I'm evaluating and selecting between alternatives where criteria and constraints come in. Therefore, answer will be option C. Why not the others? Implementing the chosen decision, meaning that this is the point wherein I have selected B and now I am implementing it. At this stage, is there a point of criteria and constraint? No, it doesn't, because I have already chosen this is what I can do, what is feasible for me. So this is incorrect. And reviewing and controlling the decision outcome. Again, if I'm just reviewing what was the outcome of my decision, it does not impact anything in terms of your constraints, right? So therefore, answer is nothing but option C. Why was it option C? Because when I'm evaluating and selecting between alternatives, I have to see how much resources I have, because I don't have unlimited resources. So if I don't have resources for C and D, obviously they are eliminated. And then I also have to check that if I meet the criteria or not, if these options I have, they meet the criteria or not. If the requirements are not met, can I go with that criteria, option? Obviously not. Therefore, in option C, we require criteria and constraints. Now, if we have a look at our next question, non-programmable decision making refers to decisions that are, it's simple, straight up non-programmed decision making. So what is non-programmed decision making? These are the decisions non-programmed, which are, very unique. Let's say what are non-programmed decision making? Let's say there is a um, new opportunity coming up at my organization wherein there is a idea of investment, that is, you can invest in some sort of AI technology. Now, this is something which has never happened in your organization before. This is the first time. So, this is something you have to think and decide if you should move forward with this AI investment or not. You have to see, right, if this is good for your organization or not. But nothing prior in the past has happened about this. So it's a new, complete one-time thing for you. So what are non-program decisions which are new, which are sort of unique in its own way, not something you make a decision about every day. It's not like, what do I want to eat today? No. It's something which has, not happened. It's very unique in its own way. Investment in AI, or let's say I'm deciding if I should open a branch in Delhi or not, right? So these are unique in its own way. They are new in their own way. These are non-program decisions. So what will be the answer? Routine and repetitive in nature? Obviously not. We just saw it's new and unique. Based on established rules and standard procedures, can I say this is the case? Obviously not. Was there any established rule or procedure regarding AI in? Obviously not. It was something which came up new. So this is incorrect. New, unique, and unstructured in nature. Can I say this is my answer? Because yes, non-program decisions are new. They're unique. There is no sort of proper structure that, this is how we did it in the past. Let us do it now at the same way. No. This is something you have never even come across in the past. It's a one-time new future thing. So you have to think about it, know about it. So hence, we can say C is your answer. D, taken frequently at operating level would be incorrect, because non-program decisions are not something you do every day. Can I, is this AI investment coming up every day? No, it's not like that. What do you want to eat today, right? So it's not something which is taken frequently or day-to-day activities either. Therefore, answer is option C. So when we talk about non-program decision making, let us understand what exactly happens. Is that there is no established rule and guideline for this, because it's a new, complete one-time thing. And to reach to the solution, to select the best alternative amongst the all, you will have to evaluate all the options. You will have to understand and evaluate all the options. And these are for unique, unstructured, and unusual problems. That is, only unique, unstructured, unusual problems would be having to make non-program decisions. And if we talk about the complexity, these decisions are more complex in nature. Why? Because you have to analyze, you have to consider all the multiple factors, see if you can move forward with this decision or not. And if you don't have correct information, then it becomes difficult to come to the final conclusion, right? Because there is no past rule. It's not like, office supplies are out, you have to reorder office supplies. It's not like that. For that, you might have rules that, this is how you're supposed to reorder. But in non-programmed, it's sort of like a new, option. It's unique in its own way. You have to first analyze what it wants, and therefore they become more complex. So this is non-programmed decision making for you. Now, if we have a look at our next question, the cognitive bias, where a person shows a strong preference for the current situation and avoids alternatives, is known as which of the following traps? So we are talking about a cognitive bias, right? So what is a cognitive bias? Wherein I am not going to be rational and make decisions based on rationality, but rather I have certain biases. So they will affect my decision. And the question is saying a person shows a strong preference for the current situation and avoids alternatives. That is, whatever is the current situation, I like it. I am going to, even if it's not good for me, I will still show preference for it, because that is something which is, at the current moment, right? And you will avoid the alternatives. That is, you have an option. Let's say you have an option to shift to a cheaper flat. Let's say shift to a cheaper flat wherein the rent is a bit cheaper. But what will you show your preference for? You will stay in your expensive, rented flat, because this alternative of shifting is something, even though it might be good for you, even though it is good for you, you will save money. But even then, you are not ready to do it. So what are we doing? Am I making a perfectly rational decision? Obviously not. This is nowhere rational. If you could save your money but still not saving, so why? Because you cannot get out of this comfort zone. You have the preference for the current situation. So what sort of cognitive bias is this? Can I say it's an anchoring trap? Answer is no. What is anchoring trap? Anchoring is basically when I decide that this is the information I will stick to. That is, let's say, you know, we are saying a statement, right, that today this company made 10 billion of loss, right? This company made 10 billion of loss. That is the statement. You as a person who, let's say you ignore everything else and what you focus on is just the company, right? You ignore the fact that it has made losses or anything. You focus on the company and you believe that, this company is good. So you ignore the fact that it has made losses because you are anchoring yourself. You are settling down on just one part of the information rather than reading the entire thing, right? Because you have some sort of, anchoring bias. That is the anchoring trap. Then we have the status quo trap. Can I say this is your answer? What is the status quo trap? That is, at the current moment, at the current moment, you are showing a preference for your own current situation. And even though maybe shifting to the alternative would be good for you, but you're still not able to. Why? Because you're stuck there. There is sort of a status quo that, if I've spent 50,000 once, then coming down from that 50,000, even if I know saving money is good for me, might be difficult. You're stuck somewhere, right? So that is the status quo trap, and that is our answer here. Why not the others? Confirmation bias is incorrect. Confirmation bias is when you are trying to forcefully confirm something you know, even if it is incorrect. Let's say I have some sort of, belief that, certain people in the Western countries are rude. That is my belief. I will anyhow try to confirm that fact, even if reality is different. So that is confirmation bias. Then we have escalation of commitment, which is also incorrect, because nothing about, your commitments herein. It's about a strong preference of the current situation. And overconfidence bias is also incorrect. It's just when you're overconfident in your own saying without any proper evidence. So answer is option B, status quo trap. Why? Because what is the status quo bias? You know that you are being dragged down. You know you are being dragged down. What did we say? That I am, let's say, paying rent of 20k. This is very expensive for me. This is very expensive for me. I have the option to pay a cheaper rent and save money. This is what I should go towards. But what is the status quo bias? It is dragging me down. How? Because I have the preference for stability. That is, I already have a habitat living here. Why to change it, right? Let's just stay stable. Anticipated regret and blame. That is, I am scared. What if I shift to a cheaper flat and I don't like it? What if it's not comfortable for me? I'll regret it then I'll have to blame myself. So that is why just let it be. Let us, stay in the expensive one only, even though it is wasting my money. Selection difficulty. I don't know what to select. I am somebody who is very bad at making decisions, let's say. So I won't do it. And the cost of change. That is, even to shift from this to the cheaper flat, the shifting cost might be a lot, right? So all of these included, I am being dragged down. Even if I know there is my better option, I still would, stay stuck to the old one, which is hurting me. That is the status quo bias, basically. And now our next question, which of the following is considered poor practice while making decisions under pressure? So I'm making decision under pressure. What is a poor practice? Staying calm and analyzing available information. Can I say this is a poor practice? No, this is a good practice. You're supposed to analyze information before making decisions, right? So that is good. So this is not our answer, therefore, because we're supposed to find out poor practice. Consulting experienced colleagues for quick input. Consulting experienced colleagues for quick input. This is also a good practice. If I don't have time, I will go to my senior and ask for input, right? So this is not a poor practice. Prioritizing critical issues before deciding. Again, this is also a good practice. Critical issues should be given priority. Postponing the final choice until the last moment before deadline. Deadline is at 12 o'clock. I said I will make the decision at 11:59. Postponing the decision until the last moment before the deadline. Can I say this is a good practice while making decisions under pressure? No, this is a poor practice. This is bad. Make the decision beforehand, right? So, this is our answer. and focusing on facts rather than emotions. Again, this is supposed to be a good practice. Why? Because if you're making factual decisions, that is better than emotional decisions. Therefore, my only poor practice was option D. Now, this was a very general straight up question. If you could just understand the question was asking for a poor practice, you can easily figure out the answer by trial and error, because all the other options are good practices except for option D. Now, coming to our next question, which decision making style is characterized by a low tolerance for ambiguity and strong preference for logic and rationality? For this, we have to understand decision making styles. So, we have 4 types of decision making styles, right? Now, out of those styles, which style is characterized by low tolerance for ambiguity? Low tolerance for ambiguity meaning I won't just say you some random thing that, go and prepare some report. I haven't told you what report, how to do it, by when I need the report. So I have not given you any details. I just said you to go and prepare some report, and you yourself have to figure out what I was talking about. So that means ambiguous information, not correct, crisp, clear information. So in this style, what happens? Low tolerance, meaning there is no tolerance for ambiguity. You're supposed to give clear instructions, and a strong preference for logic and rationality. This style prefers what? Logic and rationality. So what will be the answer from here? Our answer is option D, the directive style. Why? Let us try to understand these styles. So we have these 4 styles: analytical, behavioral, conceptual, and directive. The analytical style is the one who are the people who will, they are very analytical in nature. So there is high ambiguity tolerance and task focus. Your focus is on the task, yes, but since you are very analytical, even if I just give you a random thing or just give you a vague statement, you can analyze that statement on your own and get the work done. So that is why high ambiguity tolerance, because you can analyze things on your own. Right? Then we have the behavioral style. Behavioral has a lower ambiguity tolerance and social focus, because as the name is suggesting, behavioral, these are the people who are more focused in terms of the social relations, the friends you have at work, rather than just the task. And they will have a low ambiguity tolerance. That is, you can't just give them vague statements and they'll get the work done. No, they need to be told what needs to be done. Then we have the conceptual people. These are the people who have a high ambiguity tolerance and a social focus. So yes, these are also people who are more focused in terms of their social relations and friends, yes, but they have a high ambiguity tolerance, meaning even if I give them figure things out and get the work done still. And finally, directive people, this was our answer. Why? Because these people have a low ambiguity tolerance and task focus. Low ambiguity tolerance meaning you have to direct them. As the name is suggesting, directive, you have to give them orders. They cannot get the work done otherwise. And they have a task focus, meaning what? That they are logical, they're getting the work done, rational in that way. So therefore our answer was directive, and these are the 4 styles of decision making. Coming to our final question. The decision to discontinue or drop a product line because it is consistently unprofitable is an example of what type of decision? So what am I doing? I have decided to discontinue, stop or drop a product line because it is not making me profits, it's unprofitable. So what sort of decision is this? Can I say it's an operational decision? What is an operational decision? These are for your day-to-day operations. So is this a day-to-day operation to discontinue a product line? No, obviously not. Day-to-day operations are what? Today I'm supposed to sell 10 sims. That is a day-to-day operation. Then can I say it's a tactical decision? It's not a tactical decision either, right? Because we are not talking about department-wise decisions. Because discontinuing or dropping a product line, can the marketing department just suddenly say that yes, we can drop it? No, they cannot. Everybody else has to have an input in it, and it's generally the top level management who decides certain things, right? So it's not tactical either. Can I say it's a program decision? What is a program decision? This was your routine decision. Office supplies over, reorder them. That sort of a decision. So this is not at all a program decision. Then we have strategic decision. Can I say it is a strategic decision? Yes. Why? Because this decision will affect the strategy of my company. This line was making losses. That is why I sold it, because I don't want to make losses anymore. So that is a strategic decision, and the answer would be D. Not a routine decision either, because there is nothing routine about this. So it is option D. Why? Because that is what your strategic decisions are. They are for the long term focus in terms of making strategies which affect the company. And with this, we have seen our 10 PYQs from 2025 of the decision making component for your NABARD Grade A Phase 1. And before we wrap up, I would like to show you that EduTap has these courses of NABARD Grade A, starting with the 2-day demo gold course. As I've already mentioned, that this will act as a trial pack, and you will be getting an idea of the actual gold course, right? It's for 2 days, followed by the top up course, right, which is basically this is for all the subscribers of the RBI course. In this top up course for NABARD, you will get ARD, decision making and computer knowledge, right? Then we have the test series, and most importantly, the gold course, which is the most comprehensive solution of phase 1 to an interview, and the silver course. So I hope you were able to understand and the PYQs were clear. With this, we are going to wrap up our video here. Thank you everyone, and that would be all for the day. Thank you all.